there's always a negative accompanied with every positive, and there's always a positive accompanied with every negative. You can't have one without the other. And I just choose to always see the positive side because I know it's there lurking somewhere. Something bad happens to someone. If you're not looking for the positive, you're never going to have the opportunity to win.
Now, the gentleman that I have on the show right now has a killer mindset. You need to have one if you're going to be a pro athlete. And not only was he a phenomenal pro athlete, scoring himself 2 Grey Cups with 2 separate teams, the Edmonton Eskimos, which you can see right there in the back, and the Montreal Alouettes. He's also transitioned into being a successful entrepreneur. Randy Spencer, thank you for being on the program.
Happy to be here.
All right, buddy. So I want to start off with how we met. Do you remember how we met and where we met?
Man, I always say Miami, but I know it's Orlando.
It is Orlando.
The Red Roof Inn.
Red Roof Inn.
In a hot tub.
In a hot tub. And not with a whole bunch of ladies. No. It was a hot tub. It was just a sausage party.
Yeah, it was a sad-looking hot tub.
Yes, it was. But we had a good time, and you were there with a gentleman. He may have been someone on your team. We were there doing MLM at the time. I believe it was Visalis, right?
Yeah,
I was like
that's right.
Super ripped. And
yeah, you were in the zone.
I was in the zone, and you were getting started, and you had done well. You had hit the first level in the compensation plan, which was Rising Star at the time. I believe that I was a regional director, had my car bonus, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of dripping on you a little bit, and I think you kind of knew a little bit about me because maybe I'd been on stage or something of that nature. And you were really disappointed with your progress. And I was always blown away by that because here's this guy that had achieved the apex in his sport. Like in Canadian football, you can't do any better. In pro football, it's one of the top accolades. And I couldn't believe that someone who had achieved so much in his life was upset with or feeling a little bit conflicted with the fact that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to A, B, or C when it came to MLM, when you were killing it as far as what you could be doing at that time. So that obviously speaks a lot to your mindset and the fact that you just want championship type form now.
100%. You want to win. You want it all. And you hold yourself to a high standard because you've always held yourself to a high standard to get to where you want to be in all those avenues of life. It's funny that you say like winning a championship, even in, CFL, people are like, oh, it's not NFL, this and that. I remember one time I was down in Vegas partying with a whole bunch of NFL boys for it was Super Bowl, and they saw my ring and they're all like, they're like, man, I want one of those, man. Like, and that's it. Like football across the board, doesn't matter where you came from. To win a championship, you don't care. You just want to win a championship. And that level is, once you get to that level, the hardest part about that was you already know how to win. You know what it takes. And then you want that to translate so easily into every other facet of your life. So then I'm sitting there going, man, I'm just like level 1 here. I need to be level 10. Trying to like rip every ounce of knowledge out of you at the time. You're like, this is a hot tub, man. It's not time to talk about this stuff. And that's where I was like, that's how you learn, right? You learn and you model after the people that have actually done it before.
Absolutely.
That's how you learn.
Go out there and learn from people that have already done it, right? Find out the people that have done what you want to do and, drip on them. And I really thought it was fascinating, though, with that conversation, the fact that you wanted to be so far ahead, and you kind of lose track of the fact of what you just said. You didn't become a pro football player overnight. You started at what age?
12.
Right, 12. So it took you how many years to get to the CFL, and yet you start this new company, and immediately you wanted to be an ambassador, make 6 figures. And it's great. But I guess that mindset, sometimes it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? It pushes you to want greatness, but it also kind of forces you, I guess, to really practice your patience.
100%. Yeah, it's the journey that the journey, you have to remember the journey is the thing that you remember. You don't, that 5 minutes, yeah, that is memorable when you make it, but you're going to remember all the struggles, all the ups, the downs, the whole way along that built you and molded you into who you had to be to actually succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And we had spoken before we decided to do this podcast. And one of the things I asked you, and it led to a really interesting story in regards to your weight. Like, people look at you and just assume that you're always a big kid. I said, what was the number one takeaway that football gave you? And you can give me your answer and elaborate on that with that story.
With the weight, or takeaway all throughout?
From your pro sports, what was the number one takeaway? And if I remember it correctly, it can kind of bleed into the weight gain.
Yeah. You know what? No one thought I was the one that was supposed to be playing football. Like, coming out of being 190 pounds when I started, I think that was it. I was like, I was determined to play. I said, this is what's going to happen. This is going to be my vehicle to success. I'm going to get a football scholarship. And I started dedicating myself every day towards that, running 5K, every night, doing weights, everything, once I got the football scholarship, I was the only one in Ottawa that year to get it, and went down to Utah, and I put on 20, 30 pounds. Then I came back, everyone's like, who the hell is that? Then I went from 196 to 235 to 255 to 275. I remember laughing at my senior year. The guys were like, "Oh, I bet you $1 to get to 300. Each pound to get to 300." And I was like, "You guys are disgusting." I was like, "Yeah, you're crazy. I'm never going to be 300." Yeah. Next year I'm 305, like that, because you get to the next level and you're training that much more and putting on that much more, muscle. But that consistency, that hard work, that translates into everything you do in life, of persistence, is what it takes to succeed. Nothing you do is overnight. Like, nothing you do is overnight. It's no one sees all that either. No one's gonna remember me doing all the work it took to get to the certain points to win that. But I know that story, and everybody else that lives that will know that work is persistence, it's consistency, it's every day motivating yourself to want to succeed.
Right. Being a self-starter.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that a lot, especially in MLM, where you're just getting a whole bunch of no's, or in sales in general, or where you just don't have people coming to you and you have to go out there and prospect. And I guess, in sports, oh my God, like, that's just next level stuff. But I mean, like, when you were playing professionally, and I've always wondered, because people say, it's a job and this and that, like, is there a part of it that's a job, and is there a whole bunch of it, like, you can't believe that you're playing a game? Like, kids play this game and make no money. Like, you're playing a game and you're making a living playing that game.
Yeah, the only job part was the amount of film that we watched.
Right.
That's basically it. Everything else was, a blast. Just hanging around with the guys. Even if you're watching film, you're with the guys anyways. So, and then you're just making fun of the guys that are falling asleep. So
yeah, no doubt, eh?
I don't know if it was not a job. When you get to do what you love, your work becomes your play becomes your work. That's when you're living your true calling. And then that's the hardest part, is when that's done. What do you do next? Right. But definitely, when you're doing something you love, you're never going to notice it as work.
Right.
Never.
I have that conversation with people that are in 9-to-5s that they don't necessarily love right now. And if you don't have passion in your occupation, it means every day you're just going out there and you're doing something, right? And it's just kind of going to waste. Now, a lot of people, well, I won't say a lot of people, but there are some people that do find purpose in their 9-to-5s. But if you don't, why not just start putting a little bit of energy into something that you enjoy doing? And then through that consistency and putting an effort and that vision into something that you enjoy, where that passion can start turning into a paycheck. And then who knows where it's going to lead you. I think it's so unfortunate that more people don't kind of open up that avenue opposed to just thinking it's too hard, I can't do it.
Yeah. No, like every 9 to 5 I've ever had has been amazing. Like I've learned something from it. I will never knock a 9 to 5 ever.
Oh, that's actually something I want to touch on, dude.
Yeah.
You're telling me this story after you had injured yourself,
Yeah.
that you started working some odd jobs. And I thought it was so interesting. The thing that you told me was you took every one of those jobs, even if you didn't necessarily love them, you turned them into a learning opportunity. That is
100%.
gold. Please speak on that.
So yeah, the year that I had, my last year, CFL, I left there. I had to get 2 shoulder surgeries and umbilical hernia surgery. And I had those all within the year. So I was like, well, I got to work now. Football's done.
Yeah.
And so I ended up taking a job at a jewelry store in a local mall. And, you know, fresh off of winning Grey Cups, like, you know, I'm still in my limelight, or feel like I'm still, you know, there. And I don't care. It's work, right? So I've never sold jewelry before, but I'm like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be the number one salesman. And whenever I meet that store owner today, he's like, he thanks me because he's like, you saved me. I'm like, what? You saved me? You gave me a job. I didn't care. Like, he's like, no, like I was striving and pushing, and from me pushing and push the other people to want to do more sales also. So, yeah, it was awesome. But I sat there and I learned how to sell, obviously, because I was still doing jewelry. But in the spare times, I'd read a book. I'd read something to get ahead. At every point, I was always trying to learn something to excel in any way. Like I did roof estimations, I did MLM, obviously. Yeah, I've done many, many jobs. I had a company for snow removal. Like, doesn't matter to me. I don't care what it is. Whatever you do it to learn and then move on.
Right. There's a Canadian author, Robin Sharma, and he writes this book, The Greatness Guide. He's also the one that wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Both phenomenal books. And in that,
I read that one. Yeah.
The
Ferrari one. Yeah.
In that book, The Greatness Guide, he speaks of treating every job that you have like you're the CEO, right? Do it with pride, do it well, learn what you can from it. And then through those behaviors, number one, you'll just create better disciplines. But through your work that shines above and beyond, potentially it could lead to some other work, right?
Yeah.
For instance, I like somebody's hustle, and maybe there's a janitor. Now, I know this does not happen all the time, but I love the work ethic that I see this janitor puts into what he does. He's detail-oriented.
Put yourself in a position to actually win. If you're like, that's the thing people don't get. It's like you're always one person away from some connection that's going to better your life if you're trying to put yourself in positions to win. Like if you're just going through, you know, your mundane everyday things and you're not looking to progress, no one's looking to help. You're drawing nothing towards yourself.
Right.
That positive energy will always attract positive energy. Right.
Yes.
So if you're in that mindset of like, how can I win today? How can I meet someone and help them? Someone's going to come and help you.
That's a very good point. Now that kind of ties in well, I guess, with goals, right? Goals obviously really, really important. How do you go about your goal setting? I know that you actually do Zooms, and this is something that you speak on to people. Like you are an expert. You've most definitely put in your 10,000 hours. If anyone knows about setting a goal and getting there, I mean, you've done it over and over and over.
Well, there's a program I'm in right now too, and it's a Bob Proctor program, and there's different types of goal setting, right? And there's A type goal, there's B type goal, there's C type goals, and it's what type of goal are you setting? Are you setting something that you already know you're going to achieve, right? Are you setting something that now it's going to push you a little bit, but there's a plan to it, and once I go through the plan, I'm going to achieve it, but you know, like something derails you and you give up, and then that one's gone. Or is it a C-type goal, which is something that is a fantasy, something is like you don't even know how to get there.
Right.
You're like, I want to do that, but I don't know. Like that was getting a football scholarship. I had no clue how to do it. But if I continually make the right decision every day, things will come to me, the resources will come, the answers will come that will put forth in front of my path to bring me towards that goal. And the belief just compounds as you go until you reach it.
Right. And that falls back to consistency, which we spoke on earlier.
Yeah. And it's the motivation for a C-type goal just gets more and more as you go.
Right.
For something that you already know you can do, you lack the motivation. It's only temporary, right? But do things that push you to such a limit that it excites you constantly when you infuse yourself into that.
Right. So let's go. I can't even imagine. You were saying just getting a scholarship and playing pro football, like that was a crazy level. So then you go on to win 2 Grey Cups and 2 Grey Cups in 5 years, right? So that's a lot of success in a very, very short period of time. Winning a Grey Cup, what was that like for you? For instance, like where do you go from there? Once you've achieved that top level, where do you go from there? Now, obviously, injuries plagued the ability to go out there and achieve those goals. But off the top of your head, can you remember what you thought was next for you?
Right after football, you mean? Or
no, you're playing football, you're winning these championships. I mean, because you can't do any better than a Grey Cup. So what's next? Is it personal goals?
You're not even thinking that. That's the problem. You're not even thinking about that. It's like you win the first one and you're like, okay, let's go win another one. Okay, let's go win another one until you're done winning them or your career's over them.
Right. Okay.
Like, you're not thinking outside of football ever. Like, yes, you're thinking, okay, I might have to when it's like your 10th year or something. But if you're young, 5 years, you're just pushing, you're going to the next one. Right. So you're not really thinking outside of football for too long. Maybe just, here and there, but not really long-term, like C-type goal stuff.
Right.
That's where the A and B's always come in. Like, oh, I'm just going to make, 20,000 in the off season or something like that. But nothing that's like, well, I'm going to change my whole life and this is what my next direction is. That doesn't come to you till you're forced to.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's crazy that that happens that way. And we're going to speak on that in just a little bit. But I always find it's best when you're kind of maybe paying a little bit more attention and you decide to make a change opposed to sometimes the abrupt thing that happens that forces you to change. But I mean, both can end up to be beautiful things. Absolutely. So we're talking about winning Grey Cups, big time achievements. With these wins come the accolades, the rings. Like you said, people have the necklaces or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You had your Grey Cup ring stolen.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, how does that happen? So I guess that was something you were wearing them on the regular and you just happen to be out and about?
Yeah, I was on a meeting. I was on my way to a meeting. And usually when I go to a meeting, people, appreciate that I bring them. Just, it's that kind of thing. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll bring a ring so I can see them, blah, blah, blah. But the meeting got canceled. So I was like, let me just jump in the gym, get a quick workout in. And when I was there, I walked in and I saw, a guy came in after me, sat down and asked me, I looked at him and he was dejected. And so I said, what's wrong? And he said, well, I forgot my lock. And I was like, well, you can throw your stuff in with me. And he said, oh, no, my girlfriend's coming. So I was like, all right, cool. Locked up my stuff, went out, jumped on a elliptical. And within 2 minutes, I just had a feeling something was off and saw him walk out and got off the elliptical, went in, and everything was gone. And I just bolted out. But within 4 hours, it was plastered all over social media. I already found him. And they just installed a week before. They just installed an HD camera, so it was a split second finding this guy. He just disappeared off their radar for a little bit until they found him breaking into another house. So, yeah,
not happy enough with the score he already got. And so how did he get into the locker?
Oh, everything was cut off. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, he had a gym bag, so he must have had some big jaws of life or whatever you call it.
Right.
Big snips or whatever on him.
I'm just going to share my perspective. If I was sitting next to you, I don't care if I know you have Grey Cup rings or not, or whatever monetary value is in that cupboard. I'm not going to mess with you in particular. Know what I mean? Like maybe if it was the punter, I'll take his rings.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go after the lineman. No way, no how. Anyways, so they did find this guy, but they never did find the rings.
No, he said he sold them, and he pled guilty. That was about over a year, 2 years ago. So now it's just in the process. So
right. So I was listening to another podcast that you were on. No surprise about mindset, because you've already dropped so many amazing nuggets, and thank you. But there's so many different levels that were attached to these rings, and
yes.
I had a discussion with you about, whether or not you're religious, and I've dibble dabbled, and there's a saying that the things that you love too much, are the things that will be taken away, that God will take away from you. Yeah. And you were saying that there was a lot of attachment to these rings because it maybe at one point or another anyways validated you as a champion, right? Physically, that was the physical worth of those rings. Maybe you'd like to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, one thing, I was in the ironworking industry. When I talk about this is, I was never attached to, I never knew if I was attached to them, because it didn't faze me when they're gone in that respect that it does everybody else. But I knew I could get different things wearing them. So, for example, being in the construction, I could walk in and no one would know who I am, obviously, without those rings on. And I'm a foreman there, and I knew the second I put them on, I had the general man, every single person in the basket, whatever we needed. Oh, yeah, for preferential treatment to us. Don't worry about these guys. Oh, yeah, it's Grey Cup champ Rand. Don't worry. Right? But it's like, are you only doing that now because of the football? So, do I still have that power without wearing them? Right? That was the question to myself. It's like, I'm like, are people only paying attention to me because the fact that I've got these 2 Grey Cup rings, or is it me, myself? And when they were gone, I was saying there's a blessing, because I knew it wasn't the rings, it was me. I could still, command a room, have presence within there because of my personality, instead of, thinking it was the rings the whole time.
Right. It reinforced what you already knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know for sure, but I definitely know now.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, in regards to losing the rings and not giving that much of a poop, obviously the monetary value didn't bother you much, but you were telling me those rings were like 15, 20 grand a piece at least?
Yeah, they're 15 and 12, about those two back then. So inflation about,
All right.
Out there.
You're cool with that. You're better than me. That's for sure.
Man, I'm not the first one. I can tell you stories. There's I know 3 of my least close friends have lost them.
Really? And have they dealt with it the same way that you have?
Oh, they got them back.
Oh, they got them back. But, okay.
Yeah, they had to pay to get them back. Everyone has to get them remade or whatever. But one went out the cab on a highway.
Oh man!
Right out the window. Yeah, there's stories. Yeah,
I bet. Ones. Well, do you want to share one or?
Oh, I couldn't.
Okay, yeah, it's somebody else's rings.
It's someone else's. So
okay,
I couldn't even explain it the way it has to be explained.
I gotcha. So, in regards to the achievements, though, I guess it speaks on the fact that if you have goals and you go out there and you achieve them and you're proud of them and they mean something to you here, physically, it really just doesn't matter that you have those rings or not. That's not something that can be taken away. No. Plus, you're on the cup.
No. Yeah, exactly. My name's on
now
there.
Now, the cup disappears, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then you're wiped off the face of the planet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they can always be remade. It's just molten lava and pressure, making diamonds, you know, it can be remade. I'm not even worried about it.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many more important things than the physical.
Yeah.
Right. That's really important. I'm trying to remember the saying just right off the top of my head, but not relying too much on externals to make you happy internally.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
If the rings are the only thing that's keeping you happy, then there's a problem inside.
There's a huge problem.
Right. Okay. So let's move this forward to something really life-changing. Now, for me, losing $30,000 worth of jewelry, that would be pretty life-changing.
Why I had a heart attack, eh?
Having an injury that ends my pro football career, that would be something else. That would probably just, that would be pretty life-changing. But, you make all these adjustments and you persevere, and you did it with this next one, and this would be the most real, because this is as internal as you can get, because you had a problem with your ticker. Yeah. And you had a heart attack.
I was doing a jiu-jitsu class, and I finished jiu-jitsu, got home, and I was just drained, and sitting there, and boom, like an elephant was sitting on my chest, and had a little mini heart attack there. There's no mini, I guess there are no mini ones. It's a heart attack. But went to the clinic, and they're like, "Oh, you're having a heart attack." I was like, "Okay, thanks." And I drove back home.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So until I told the wife, and then she's like, "Yeah, you're going to the hospital." And then her dad came and drove me over. But it was. I tell you, there's always a negative accompanied with every positive, and there's always a positive accompanied with every negative. You can't have one without the other. And I just choose to always see the positive side, because I know it's there lurking somewhere. And once again, it's another blessing. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have come up with the invention that I've been working on for the past 9-10 months. And so it was necessary. Like, it happened, and it sparked something new, because I'm looking for the positive. Like, something bad happens to someone, if you're not looking for the positive, you're never going to have the opportunity to win from that.
I agree. And so many people get pissed off at that statement. Look for the positive in things, right? For every negative, there's a positive. And if you don't mind me elaborating on that, because you and I consider you to be a high value individual to me, like a high value contact. And we've actually kind of gone through a lot together for people that are living two different parts of the country. And I shared a very special time of my life with you, Randy, when we were in Live together. My mother had recently passed away.
Yeah.
And you were killing it. You were such an inspiration to me in that business. I'm telling you, guy, I don't know if you know Randy or you don't know Randy, but whatever this guy does when he's leading, I strongly suggest that you follow. And one of the stories that I shared on stage, and you were there, is I talked about my mother and her passing, and the fact that you hear about this silver lining around the cloud. And it's not necessarily something that this always appears on its own. Sometimes you need to grab that silver lining marker, and you need to I'm going to say it, fucking with both hands, man. And you have to, draw the outline. And sometimes you have to take a break. Sometimes you have to walk away, but you go back to it. And if you're not out there looking for the positives in shitty situations, then you're only just left with shit, right? So you can decide to just sit there in your pile of shit, or you can decide to kind of maybe step out of it every once in a while and just do your best to find one takeaway from what you've been left with to make your life better. And then you'll start to understand that analogy just a little bit better. Now,
100%.
The heart attack obviously brought a lot of things to light for you, although you were already an incredibly appreciative person, but it did open your eyes to an industry that you had gotten into now for about 2 years. And
almost a half now,
2.5 years. And there's this great video that you posted. I'm probably going to have to put it at the end of this podcast so people can see it. So Randy has transitioned into insurance. Oh, I just watched my viewership drop.
Yeah. Nope, we're out.
We're done. And what I love about this video is right off the top, you mentioned that you're insurance, and then you identify with how people feel about insurance. Like, oh, that feeling you just got right there, stop it, right? That's not me. That's not what I do. Explain to people what's different, number one, about what you do and how you do it, as well as the company that you're working with.
Yeah, that feeling, like 100%, everyone has that stigma, because when you got your car insurance, home insurance, everything, it's usually negative. And most companies aren't in the business to pay you. They're, that's what people grow up learning. And it's like when you're young and you get your car insurance, well, you're paying more than your parents are paying because you're young. And then something bad happens and they're charging you more, right? Yeah. So it's crazy for us. Like, I got introduced into insurance and I was like, no thanks. Like, someone just told me to get into it. And I was like, oh, I will always investigate and learn what there is, regardless, because who knows what conversation I'm going to get with anybody. So never know where it's going to take you. But then at the end of it, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. And I call a buddy and he's like, you should come check out Combined. And this company's been around for 100 years and no one even knows about it. I'm like, well, okay, check it out. I'm like, definitely, I got to do this. I have to, because I looked at I just put pen to paper of how many injuries I'd had. And right off the bat, I would have claimed over 100,000 and it would have saved me grueling through coming out of football, but all the way through, even when I was in college, it would have helped me out. Even since I was 12 for kids, like I see and process claims now for kids that break a thumb, fracture an ankle, get stitches, and they're getting $4,000.
Go into that. So give me an example of one of these kids with an injury and how they got their money.
The first claim in our office, so this company's been around forever, but we opened an office, and so across North America, everyone still goes door to door knocking. And if you're in the city, if someone knocks on your door, what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
You're probably going to hide. So we came out and our office started and we're like, hey, let's do this differently. Let's network. Let's do it through referrals and show how this business grows. But the first claim that came through was for a kid that was snowboarding and broke his thumb. And so they're like, hey, do we even put this in? Do we even want to chance it? And they put in the claim, and a week later, this kid's got $4,200 in the bank. Well, not the kid, the parents have it.
Right.
Kid gets a free Xbox probably. But that other $4,000 is going to the parents. So they're like, this is real. And that's where it started. And now, we've branched. We have 80 agents in our district, but we're the only ones that keep our clients, and it's all customer service for us. So something happens, I know every single claim that's going through for my people. My people actually called me. The last one called me from the ambulance. He was cutting down a tree in his backyard, and the chainsaw slipped him in the leg.
No.
And he's calling me. He's like, I got, what do I do? And I'm like, first, just go to the hospital. Take care of yourself. And we'll take care of this tomorrow. But one day in the hospital paid him $3,300.
That's amazing.
Right?
That's amazing.
People don't get it. Right?
Well,
until
insurance,
they sit down. Yeah.
Insurance is one of those things, though, right? Where people think life insurance, they think about something bad happening to them, and they don't want to engage with that thought. It's just like our own mortality, right? We don't wake up every day thinking that we're going to die, and how are we going to take care of that death? There's so many people that don't have money for their own funerals. It's absolutely ridiculous, right?
It's insane. I can't give you enough examples. It's a weird when, I don't know, have you ever been in a restaurant, worked in one?
Yes.
So how you ever walk into the back of the kitchen for the first time and it looks
it's slippery as shit.
So it's the strangest place ever until you work there for a while,
right?
And it just becomes normal. Or you go into a new city and you live there and you don't know where anything is, but then everything's become so commonplace. And that's what it is being in insurance. I was like, I never got to see all this stuff before. And then you're just submerged in it, that you're like, this person getting cancer, this person getting this. And you see all the things people are getting just overwhelmed with, and you're the solution.
Right. And you know what? And there's also two different types of people that do insurance. And unfortunately, it just takes one to really turn people off on the whole thing. There are insurance people that are salespeople. Yeah. And listen, at the end of the day, we're all in sales, right? We all get paid for what we do. So I don't like poop on anyone for going out there and making their money. But there's also the people that are out there and they really feel that they are adding value to the marketplace, and they genuinely want people to take care of themselves. And I remember you reaching out to me as well and just saying like, Jay, I've come across something really wicked. And, you know, unlike the last thing that I was doing, like this is really helping people. Like I'm seeing people get help right now, and what that makes your heart feel. Now, do you do all different types of insurance? Like you do death insurance, you do accidental insurance?
Yeah, I do accidental, critical illness, disability.
Critical illness, that's the one. Yeah. Now, what is the number one misconception when it comes to critical illness? And maybe you can just speak on this really quickly. Do not bore my listeners. because and I'll tell you why, because I hear like so many conflicted messages when it comes to this. Like you put in this money for 20 years, if you don't use it, you get it back, or if anything happens, it multiplies by this. Like just give me, if I'm the guy that's looking at you and I'm trusting Randy Spencer, which I do, to give me some great advice on critical illness, what does this mean for me?
Critical illness is an amazing plan these days because of how, like, it's weird to think people are living through a lot of the critical illnesses that were first created on these plans. So people have a heart attack and they live through it, right? So medicine's advanced to such a point that, you know, when I had a heart attack, if I had my critical illness in place, that got 50,000 critical illness plan, I would have had 50, 40 grand right there, right off the jump. So it's like that would have saved for like the whole year, but you know, regardless, I still working. But even for young people, I'll put a critical illness on somebody for $20 for $25,000 of protection, because it is seriously the smartest thing to do, especially since the investment, like, it depends on where you're getting it from, because a lot of them will stop covering you at 65 or 70. But if you can get a critical illness plan that goes until you pass, that's the best bet, because every dollar goes back to a beneficiary. So you're not wasting a single dollar, because why are you using it for? Right? Because if you have it till 65, you're probably going to have the critical illness at 67.
Right? Yeah, right? Chances are.
And now you're not covered anymore. Like, you know, find a company that actually covers you in the most important part of your like age time, like, you know, that age gap of 65 up, not stop it at 65. Right.
And the one thing that you're really pumped about when it comes to your business as well, specifically the company that you work for, is that this is a company that pays. They pay. It almost seems like they're eager to pay, from what you've told me.
We pay average 2.9 million for every working day in Canada.
Yeah, that's wild.
Right? That's crazy. Yeah. And that we don't advertise. So that's where all the money is going back to the clients, and the savings for families is astronomical. But I think I gave you an example last time. I had a lady, she had the minimum plan. It was a $14 plan, and she got in a car accident, and it was her fault. And she has ended up in the hospital for 3 months. Now her husband couldn't work. And so now 2 incomes are gone. And that's what people don't, they're like, oh, well, if I go down, my husband will be able to work, or my wife will be able to work. Well, what happens if they don't have the opportunity? Now 2 salaries are gone, and a $14 plan saved their financial life and paid them $40,000. Like, it doesn't even compute to people. But that's why, because people haven't seen it, and I just take the time to educate people that it exists. That's it.
Right. Randy doesn't sell. Spencer does not sell. He educates. He educates, and that's great. And I mean, I'm sure people get the feeling of that already you're speaking in very general terms. You're not trying to like snake oil salesman them right now.
No.
It comes from a good place. Go out there and find whatever works best for you. But if you have a good vibe from this gentleman, I strongly suggest, and I will personally vouch for Randy, that you're in good hands. And you're an Ottawa native as well.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
I was supposed to be back there that past summer, but you know, whatever your shirt says.
This thing? That you can get at GallantMEDIA.com/shop.
That's right.
Or the Launchpad merch right there from my sponsor. Well, Randy, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Like, this literally took months to happen.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people that I wanted to speak to because you're just 100% value, brother, and you come from such a good place.
Comes from value, and I appreciate you for doing this. This is like you're calling, like you're the voice. We always talked about your voice for radio, your voice for everything. It's like, dang, can you shut that thing off? The ladies around it.
That's the best. Well, thank you, buddy. I will play that video. I'm going to throw that video there on the end because that'll have all your contact information, what you're doing. And I really do hope that at least one person reaches out and gives this gentleman, a champion through and through, an opportunity to make sure that when you need a champion, it's there for you.